My husband claims I'm cheating, but I've been secretly texting my ex behind his back every night, and I know that sounds like the part where the audience hisses and throws popcorn, but if you'll sit in the dark with me for a second, I'll tell you how the theater lights look from my side. I'm Nina, I'm 32, and I'm a middle school English teacher who spends her days convincing 12-year-olds that commas are not decorative and stories can save your life. And then I come home and write a story I don't know how to live in because my thumbs keep finding a man I swore I was finished with. I teach 6th graders, the age where heartbreak looks like a broken pencil and joy looks like a glue stick that wasn't shared. I have a lavender cardigan the custodian calls my authority sweater, and I talk to the copy machine as if it's a colleague who just needs praise. Every afternoon I collect contraband notes with hearts and algebra in the margins and pretend I can't read them, and every afternoon I tell them, write what you mean, not what you think a teacher wants to read, and then at night I am the woman who writes exactly what someone wants to hear. The hypocrisy is not lost on me, I grade it with a red pen. My husband, Jonah, is an EMT who measures his days in sirens and softness. He's the kind of man who knows the barista's dog's name and keeps a spare phone charger in his pocket for strangers because preparedness calms him down. His hands have lifted furniture and people who needed to be furniture for a moment so the world could steady. He is steady. Our house is full of sturdy things he's repaired. The lamp that buzzed, the cabinet door that sulked, the step that used to be a trap for unsuspecting shins. He loves me in the way a well-built chair loves a body, patiently without asking me to say anything I can't say. The ex is Marcus. He's a sound designer, which means he can make you feel like the rain is inside your room when it's not and can find the part of a road that hums like a violin. We dated from 25 to 28, the kind of years that look stable from far away until you zoom in and see their paper scaffolds. He lived in a warehouse with plants and ideas and a mattress that behaved like a raft, and he called me teacher like it was a promise he'd try to keep. We ended because I wanted a calendar and he wanted a sky. He went on tour with a theater company that believed in long silences and invented storms. I married a person whose alarms have names. The first text came on the anniversary of the day we'd once pretended to be ours. August, thick air, the shape of a city pretending it wasn't tired. It was 10:19 p.m. I was in the kitchen washing a pan because clean hands keep secrets better. Jonah was on shift, the house dim except for the stovetop light, which makes everything look like a late-night diner. My phone buzzed with a number I could have recognized blindfolded. Do you still collect words like seashells, he wrote. I stared at the screen the way you stare at a door you thought you'd locked. I typed some of them, and watched his typing bubble like an incoming tide. Good, he wrote. Because I found one that sounds like you when you laugh in your throat. You think you won't answer. You think your willpower is a locked drawer you can just not open. Then you remember the key is in your pocket because you're responsible like that. The thing about nights is they belong to liars and nurses and people who to-do list their hearts. I do all three. The first few nights it was harmless nostalgia that felt like flipping through an old yearbook and making fun of your own hair. Remember the cinema that only played movies older than your shoes, he wrote. Remember the night the storm turned the street into a river and we raced twigs like children who had mortgages. I wrote back things I'd never tell my students to write, little, clever, well-lit lines that don't risk meaning. I put my phone screen face down whenever I heard a car because I'm the kind of coward who wants to be brave in a room with nobody in it. When Jonah's home, we're good at peace. On his nights off, we eat at the table we found on the curb and sand it into honesty. We trade stories like rations, he brings emergencies, I bring small epiphanies from the land of similes and locodrama. He listens the way a person does when a radio has become weather. He loves me without italics. He kisses my forehead like a stamp that means safe. Then he goes to brush his teeth and I go to lock the door, and on the way back to bed the rectangle in my pocket becomes a lit cave where my worst self hides and calls the darkness warm. I told my friend Tessa about it in the most unflattering way possible. It's nothing, I said. Just texts. It's language I don't get to use anymore. She's a guidance counselor who keeps candy no kid knows about and understands that nothing is a dull label someone scribbled over. She raised one eyebrow like a question and the other like a warning. Is it nothing because it's small, she asked, or because it's everything you're not naming? I deflected with the grace of a middle school hallway dodgeball. It's a poem, I said, rolling my eyes. Poems aren't moral. She handed me a Hershey's and said, neither are knives, and now you know why I love her. At school, my kids were reading The Giver and arguing about memory. Is it better to feel everything or nothing, one brave soul asked, and the classroom went that particular quiet where everyone is secretly negotiating with themselves. Feel everything, said a girl with new bangs and old sadness. Feel nothing, said a boy who learned how to be safe by pretending indifference. Feel, I said, because teachers cheat. And name it so it can't name you. Then I went home and let unnamed feelings recruit me into an army that only fights after midnight. When Jonah said I was cheating, it was after a week of his nights rolling into each other like surf. He came home just as I was slipping my phone into the couch like a contraband book. He kissed me long like he was hoping I'd wake and then let his forehead rest against mine soft and said, Babe, are we okay? In a voice no one gives you except the person who knows how you sound when you sleep. I said, of course. With that bright cruelty women learn to perform when confronted with a question they're not ready to turn into a life. He nodded, and I watched him decide to believe me because belief is a muscle we stretch for the people we love. That night, our cat found the one sliver of moonlight on the floor and flattened into it like a seal. The sink made that drip that isn't really a sound so much as a question asking if you're going to get up and fix it or live with it until it feels like a personality. I texted Marcus. He asked if I was okay. Marcus, are you? Me? I am 32 years old and can put 32 ways of saying fine into a sentence. Marcus, I miss your mean honesty. Me? I miss the sound of you not filling silence with apologies. I told you I'm not proud. Some nights the texts are harmless. What word for the first light on dishes, he'll ask. What word for the way cities exhale at 3 a.m.? I send him ridiculous answers and real ones, suds, hush, mercy, transit, ache. He records things and texts me sound bites like a kid sending treasures. A bus braking, a woman humming outside a laundromat, the way rain on a tin awning makes a high, silver noise like someone tuning a reluctant violin. He has always believed we could build a house out of sound. Meanwhile, Jonah believes we can build a house out of time given and taken. If Grace had a coordinate plane, that's where I'd be lost, the point where music and calendars forget each other. One Tuesday during writing workshop, I asked my students to try second person. You walk into the kitchen, you find a letter that has your name on it, you know it will change your life, you open it anyway. Little Daisy, who likes frogs and justice, raised her hand and said, But Ms. Ramirez, what if you don't open it? Is that braver? I told her the truth I can say to 11-year-olds. Bravery is reading whatever happens next. That night I deleted a string of messages and watched the little gray pieces crumble like cookies and didn't feel brave at all. The closest we've come to the volcano was a Tuesday with thunder that kept threatening and then gossiping with itself. Jonah had been called into a multi-car pileup out on the highway, the kind of thing that leaves you wrung like a dishcloth. He texted me at 11:40 p.m., a simple all okay that meant not okay but breathing. I replied with a heart and teas on the counter. Then I put the electric kettle on because I am a person who believes water and heat can make almost anything ordinary again. The phone buzzed, Marcus with a sound file of rain hitting a marquee outside a shuttered theater. You always liked this one, he wrote. I listened. The rain was trying to teach metal to be tender. At 12:07, I heard Jonah's key. I tucked the phone under the tea towel with a kind of instinct that makes you hate your cleverness. He came in smelling like night and diesel and adrenaline. He leaned against the counter and stared at the floor a long time. Teenage boys, he said, and the sentence held everything it needed to. We stood there, two people trying not to move too fast around grief. After a minute he said, I want to talk about your phone. I felt the animal in my chest stretch its claws. What about it? He swallowed and the swallow sounded like someone choosing kindness. I'm not going to read it. I'll never read it. But I know the face you make when you feel seen. You've been making it at someone else. He didn't accuse, he asked the air to be honest. I stared at the kettle's little red light like I had invented it. I'm not sleeping with anyone, I said, as if fidelity were a technicality. He nodded. Okay, he said. Are you thinking about leaving? My mouth said no. My mouth is good at that syllable. He kissed my temple and walked to the shower, taking his exhaustion and decency with him. I stood in the kitchen and read every message like it was a verdict. I could have ended it then. A clean, hard stop with an adult explanation. I've counseled students through the unwinding of friendships that turn into unkindness. I know the language. Instead, I wrote Marcus. He asked me, Marcus, what did you say? Me, nothing true. Marcus, do you want me to be your nothing true? Me, I want to stop wanting this. Marcus, copy. He didn't write again for 3 days. There is a strange kindness in the way people in an ambulance line up the tools. Every clamp has a place. Every gauze has a size. In my classroom, every paper has a rubric and every child a different doorway through the same lesson. In my phone, chaos had a rhythm, and the rhythm believed itself to be ethics. That was the story I told myself. This is only language, it is only midnight, the body is elsewhere, what harm is there in words not spoken in a room with a mouth? Then Daisy left another story on my desk, a second-person experiment where you open a message from someone you shouldn't and you decide not to answer and the rest of the day tastes like paper. She wrote, you close the book, you try to do the right thing and the right thing is mean. I gave her an A and circled mean with a note. Sometimes correct hurts. Doesn't make it wrong. I took my own advice for 48 hours. Then the universe gave me fog and fog makes the city sound like it's whispering. I texted him. Of course I did. Meet me where it's blurry, he wrote, meaning not a place at all but the sound of a train bridge from our past. I wrote no, and then because I am an adult who ought to know better than to leave a sentence that honest alone, I added, describe it to me. He replied with a list, feet on damp wood. The river doing its low talk. A long-distance train telling the night to be patient. I put the phone down on the kitchen table like it was a child who needed to learn to self-soothe. My sister Anna called. She has a baby who thinks my hair is a nest and a laugh you can sit in. I told her the pre-sanitized version, we've been talking. She didn't ask who. Sisters are fluent. Do you want a yes or a please stop, she asked. Yes, I said, then please stop, as if wishes in 2 languages might complete each other. She said, commit to one thing, don't use him to hurt. Don't use Jonah to hide. If you're going to blow up your life, at least learn the names of all the pieces. I wrote those down because I'm the kind of person who makes notes when she's planning a disaster. The next parent-teacher night, Jonah came straight from work in his uniform, which makes strangers softer and me meaner. He stood in my classroom under the You Are a Story banner and handed out cups of water to kids who had run out of nerves. He winked at me when a dad said his son didn't need creative writing to be a doctor, and I watched him watch me explain why we will always need stories in rooms that pretend to be about science. After, we drove home in the dark quiet you earn by behaving. At a red light, he put his hand on my knee and squeezed twice, the old code for we're okay. I squeezed back and stared at the phone on my lap and kept my palm flat on it like pressure would make it forget. I know you want me to confess in a way that gives you permission to judge me thoroughly. Consider this the scene. The night I finally told Marcus we had to stop, I used my teacher voice. Firm. Kind. Over-rehearsed. We're not children, I wrote. We can't keep building a secret room and telling ourselves it's a library. He wrote back, I never wanted to be your notebook. The line hurt because it was beautiful. We will not talk for a month, I typed. If I write, don't answer. If you write, I won't. The moon was fat and unserious. The cat threw her body against the couch like an exclamation point. I put the phone in a drawer, the old-fashioned kind of decision that depends on wood. I kissed Jonah's shoulder in bed and he murmured something about day shifts, relief slipping through the door like a draft. 7 days. On day 8 he broke the rule. I got the job in Montreal, he wrote. I wanted you to know before I leave the city where you are. I stood in the faculty bathroom at lunch and stared at my face the way a child looks at their handwriting when it's suddenly legible. I did not answer. I taught 2 classes on metaphor in a voice that wants to be good. I drove home past the bridge that sounds like a cello and did not stop. I made Jonah spaghetti because ritual is a friend to people who don't recognize themselves. I slept like a book left open. There is no moral that makes me look tidy. I wish I could tell you I ceremonially deleted him and my lungs grew back. I wish I could swear we never spoke again and now I am a TikTok cautionary tale with a redeemed smile. Here's what I can offer, the truth I am practicing like scales. I told Jonah the whole thing, not the poetry, not the sound files, not the way my thumbs know how to type storm, but the outline, which is sometimes the only kind of honesty people can carry without breaking. He was very quiet and then very tired and then he told me he wanted to try to stay married to me, but he needed me to be a person he didn't have to imagine around. I told him I would quit imagining for a while. We are, currently, tender the way new skin is tender. We speak more slowly. We say meaner truths. He took his charger back from the drawer and I bought my own. And Marcus? He sends a postcard now and then because he knows I can't delete paper without a ceremony. Montreal is cold and right, one says in his square boyish hand. The snow teaches the city manners. Another, I recorded a stairwell that makes tired sound like an instrument. I put them on the fridge under the magnet that says comma queen and pretend visitors don't read them when they are looking for milk. I do not text. I do not promise I won't. Every evening, I stand at the kitchen sink in the twilight like a cliché I used to judge and try to train my hands to want the right work. Sometimes I hold my phone and place it on the counter the way you put down a sleeping child and step away in small, exaggerated motions so you don't wake them. Sometimes I pick it up and type, "Today my student wrote a sentence that made me feel my own teeth," and then I send it to Jonah because he's the one who is supposed to know me weird and whole. He writes back, "Tell me the sentence," and I do, and he says that's good with the respectful voice he uses for strangers, and it makes me love him like a first draft that might become the thing at once if I stop adding justifications in the margins. Last week, Daisy handed me a story where the main character learns to stop checking the locked door. "You could turn the knob 100 times, she wrote in her small, fierce handwriting, or you could go sit with the person who is actually in the room and ask them what their favorite ice cream is. I laughed so hard I snorted and she smiled like she'd won a prize. After school, I brought home 2 pints and lined them up like choices. Jonah took the mint because he believes in the possibility of green. I took coffee because I am still trying to be awake. We ate on the back steps while the evening invented that soft gold light that makes even trash cans look noble. We didn't talk about heroes or villains. We talked about whether the neighbor's dog is part coyote and if we should get a basil plant that can survive us. Then later, when the house hummed and the cat agreed to tolerate us again, I went to the kitchen, put my phone in the drawer, closed it with my whole palm, and stood there long enough to hear the little click locks make when a thing decides to be itself. I walked back to the couch, tucked my feet under Jonah's leg, and listened, not to the chorus of imaginary storms in my pocket, but to the very real sound of my own life clearing its throat to tell the next part. Tonight I will probably fail once. I will probably look at the drawer like it has eyes. I will probably imagine a stairwell in a city I am not in and the way footsteps make meaning without permission. Then I'll go pour a glass of water because water is both confession and cure, and I'll take it to bed and hand it to the man who drives toward blue lights so the rest of us don't have to, and I'll say, "Hey, tell me the best minute of your day," and he will tell me something small and holy, and I will fall asleep trying to remember I am a person who teaches children how to finish sentences without hurting themselves. In the morning, I'll put on the lavender cardigan, pick up a stack of essays where 12-year-olds have tried to name their weather, and in the margin I will write, "More truth here please," gently, and I will try to grade my own life the same way.